Hey, so the sound didn't work for my presentation at the Capital Factory last week, and I've gotten a good response from the slides, people sharing them and asking me about them. So I'm going to run through really quickly now and kind of do maybe a bit of a quick and dirty version, but a version so that you can hear the words I said along with the slides. So let me present. Oops. So the talk is the no-code landscape. And the idea here is to give an overview. So this is at a meetup in Austin, Texas. And I would say 80% of the room was new to no-code. We did a little raise your hand survey in the beginning. So this talk it was pretty well received and it was really topical. Let's kind of go through what no-code is today and everything involved. So before I start, I'm Drew Thomas, and the reason that I'm talking about no code and know about this stuff is because I run the no code list. So I've been compiling software, and through doing that and being in communities and talking to people, I've met all kinds of no code software founders, no code builders, different people that from the community that have kind of informed my views and told me about things, and I've at this point get private demos and that kind of stuff. So I'm in tune with the space and with all the different kinds of software, which is a lot of what I'm going to talk about. So I'll go through some highlights really quickly first to give you a layout, and this is just my list, these numbers, so you can imagine there's more in the ecosystem. So I've got 158 now tools on the list, and they're split into 40 categories. And so if you think of building a website without code, that's one category website. So there's 39 other categories, and actually I think there's 41 now since I've done this talk the first time. There's also more than 80 tools waiting to be vetted. So just for me to look at them and make sure that they're good to put on the site. But either way, point is there's so many tools out there, so much no-code software, and there's literally new ones coming out daily. So also there's a few notable categories. And when I say notable, I mean like interesting. So I listed a few here like machine learning, games and game development, 3D, VR. These are all no code. So you wouldn't think of like, machine learning or data science as something you could do without code, but it exists. And on the right hand side, I did a screenshot of the categories on the site just to give you a little overview. And like I said, I think there's actually one or maybe a few more since that screenshot. So what I do is I break no-code products because there are so many. I break them into three kind of groups. There's build, grow, and run. And so building things would be similar to like development. That's the term we'd say for today's tools, marketing for growing, and then operations for running. So building things would include websites, web apps, mobile apps, that kind of thing, but also e-commerce, marketplaces, and even like podcasts, voice apps, things like that. It's anything that you would normally build with code or previously build with code. Now there's all these tools to do these things without code. And the next thing would be like growing. So there's a lot of email software and landing pages and form stuff that anyone can go set up. So this is particularly relevant for like a marketing department that doesn't want to, I'll say bother, but they don't want to take up their engineers' time with marketing tasks. They can now do a lot of stuff on their own without code and move their department forward without, and let the engineers focus on the product or on whatever they're doing. And then lastly is operations, which is a similar thing. No one wants engineering is like the talent, right, in a lot of organizations, and they're very busy and everyone needs them. So now you can automate things, you can do all kinds of dashboards and data stuff, and this is like also would include maybe Airtable and Coda and Notion and basically the new version of spreadsheets where you can do all this powerful data stuff. That operation wise gives people superpowers, and it lets people who are in business roles use these tools without being technical or without learning code and do pretty amazing things. And the question, did all this come out of nowhere? Because it really seems like it did. No code, I don't think it was a term in the last maybe more than 18 months ago. I don't think it was a term or whatever. It all seems very new. But the truth is that there's a long history of no code, a 20 or more year history for sure, and a huge history in enterprise. So they call it no code and low code now, but it's been around for a long time in enterprise. And I think that's because, especially if you have like a boring industry, in quotes, and there's not a lot of entrepreneurs coming in and making products for you and that kind of thing. But maybe if you're enterprise or B2B, you're in an industry like that and making a lot of money. Those companies have been building these tools and putting a lot of money into third-party no-code and low-code software as well to get a lot of things done and empower their employees to do a lot of cool things. So it's there, and it's just kind of now today coming into like a consumer-friendly version of that. But this last bullet, I wanted to note that Dreamweaver around 15 years ago was like a famous first no-code tool that kind of failed. So today, when you talk to people, if you mention no-code, especially developers who've been around for a minute, they're going to remember Dreamweaver and just kind of snicker and say, oh yeah, I know no-code like Dreamweaver, which is a little unfair, but also kind of fair because Dreamweaver added a lot of unnecessary code and proprietary code and bloat, and you couldn't really use it outside of Dreamweaver, and it was a little early, basically. So it was kind of like a famous failure, and today, for whatever reason, that's the bar for no code. But I like to dispel that myth when I can, and whenever I talk to you, I tell them, today's no code output's beautiful code. It's nothing like that. But I also like to point out that at the same time Dreamweaver was popular, Flash was very popular, and Flash was actually not considered that same vein of WYSIWYG no code tool. Flash was like something else. But it really was a no-code tool. You were dragging and dropping, creating websites and experiences. There was a timeline. And if you wanted to do some interactions, you can use ActionScript. And if you wanted to send stuff out to PHP, you could do all kinds of things. But people didn't call it no-code. And it was really popular. And it died for other reasons, not because it was necessarily a bad experience, but I think that's a good indication, at least for me, that people have always wanted this. They've always wanted to make software without having to write code. It's just kind of that wasn't until today that it was really available almost. So today we have demos, clones, and proof of concepts all over the place. There's some really impressive stuff out there. People, redoing 3D animated scrolling websites, people redoing FaceTime, people redoing Airbnb, Uber, whatever. We know that no code has the capability to do these things, but what's kind of that next level? And in business, I just wanted to point out a few. So MakerPad, who is teaching no code, so it's a little bit meta or something, but they, as a legitimate business, so it's been written that they've done $250,000 in this first year. Everything is no code. A solo founder, he doesn't code. He doesn't care about coding. He just cares about running his business. And I think it goes to show that like with that mentality, you can have a successful business. And at this point, he's hiring and they're growing. So I don't know what those numbers are going to look like, but that's a legit business. Dividend Finance is a company that all their software is built on Bubble without engineers, and they've done over $1 billion in loans. So they're a solar installation company, and they'll send someone out. The installers comes to your house with an iPad app that's made in Bubble, and it connects to HQ, and it's all that amount of money and that amount of business is all going through something that's built without engineers. And then Lambda School, good to mention because I don't know literally everything, but a lot of things that they use and build are no code. And I do know that they have a lot of no code enthusiasts on staff. So they're just kind of a big evangelist in a way of the no code movement. They're showing what's possible, as they're getting huge. And then First Round Capital, just wanted to mention them because they're a popular VC firm, and they have all kinds of cool no-code stuff going on, all kinds of automations and things like that. And then they have their VC startup blog is very popular and very beautiful, and that's built on Webflow. And then the money, which is an important component. Just wanted to list a few here. So like big money is coming into Nocode, and these are no-code software, not businesses built with no-code, but that might be a second step. But you can see like 72 million for Webflow, a total of 131 for Uncork, and then 160 for Airtable. I mean, big numbers, big money, and I think that's a good indication that the whole ecosystem is kind of picking up. Another indication would be the amount of no code specific things that are happening and that we're seeing. Really, the rate of new versions of each of these is just like crazy. Like everything's popping up like crazy lately. So no code specific agencies, tons of meetups like all over the world, every city. We're now seeing no code boot camps and schools, and also a ton of no code focused podcasts, newsletters, Slack groups, communities, that kind of thing. I at this point get 5 or 6 daily no code newsletters. I've got too many no code podcasts at this point to even keep up with. When they first started coming out, I was listening to every one, and there's a lot now. So all great news, all great for the ecosystem, and proof that it's really growing, that it's just the start. When you're in it, it might feel actually like things have been happening for a while, but it's brand new. Most people don't know about it. And when people find out about it, they seem to be joining. So what's the future promise of no code, lastly? And this is like kind of the vision and what excites me about being in this space. And so one of the things I really believe, and kind of an angle I really haven't even heard much, but my favorite angle is this idea that we're going to use software to augment humans in daily life. And the reason it excites me is because coders can do that today. And as a developer, I do that today. If I need something, or if I want to make myself more efficient, whether it's business related or just something on the personal side, I write some software. I write something. I do some code. When anyone can do that without having to know code, when anyone who can use a computer can make software to augment their life, I think that's just going to be game changing, just totally unpredictable and amazing. And basically, yeah, all humans, not just coders, augment themselves for maximum productivity or minimum effort. And so that's just going to have compounding effects. And then another really cool benefit that I think is really exciting to think about is how the end users of software will be much closer to the creators of software. So right now, coders make all software in every industry for everything. So somebody has an idea, they have to translate that through a coder to get it done. But in the future, when we see the people in the niche industry are the ones making the software for them and their peers to use, that's going to be better software, more informed, handling their problems better. It's going to be more accessible software that more, would incorporate the exact sort of like use cases and needs of the users using that product. And then also more like serendipity, because you can go to from a problem to a solution so fast. And there's not this step in between where you're paying money, where you're doing a lot of planning, where you're handing things off. It's like you have a problem, you try to solve it, you solve it. I mean, it's going to sort of just increase the pace of innovation and business. And then lastly, wanted to mention that coders can now move up the stack, so to speak. So like a lot of people ask, is no code ending coders? Is that bad for coders? Are they taking coders' jobs? And like, of course not. I mean, there's so much that needs to be coded, right, in the world, and there's not enough developers. So the first thing is that developers don't need to solve the same things over and over. Once you write code, or once enough people write the same kind of code and you kind of get an idea how it works, it's inefficient for a really skilled developer to rewrite something that's already been written. There's plenty of really exciting new code challenges to solve. There's industries that would be amazing that if there was an overflow of developers, they would go into all these different niche places and do all these amazing things. So I think that's one aspect. And then the other aspect is that regardless of any of this no code stuff, like there are not enough developers in the world right now, and they're at a shortage. They get paid a premium because they're at a shortage, so maybe that's a plus. But other than that, it's like we need more developers. And so chopping off this whole low-level set of code tasks and making them no code is going to actually free up a lot of developers to move up into harder and more challenging and more impactful code work that will hopefully improve society in general. And so lastly, at the talk, I just left this up on the screen as I did questions, kind of like a where to start. I tried to just list a few specific software depending on what you're trying to do, because there are so many different things out there. It's pretty tricky to kind of know where to start with your specific idea. All right, so that's it. And let me just wrap it up. If you have any questions on this, or if you want to use it for anything, or if you want to, whatever, just talk to me at TrueDrewCo on Twitter. You can find me at workandwhistle.com, which is my consultancy, and email me through there. All right, thanks.